All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And it's just going to be the two of us today. Stan is not able to join us. He's got some stuff he's got to take care of tonight, but he'll be back, I believe, next week. I know he's in the middle of fixing the move, so we'll see, but he'll be here when he can, so look forward to that. Anyway, so for our topics this week, we have the Grandia HD Collection. There is some announcements about a trailer, or excuse me, not a trailer, a release date, August 16th. So we're going to get into that because that's coming up, I think, Friday. That's exciting. And then we have a Pokemon Sword and Shield information that's been released. So we're going to kind of divulge that. And then we're going to get into the Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn announcement. Apparently, they're going to be streamlining the first part of that game. So we want to talk about whether or not that's going to impact the enjoyment of the game, whether you're going to miss something, etc. So anxious to get into that. And then we have finally a question outside of RPGs. What is your favorite genre? And what is your favorite game outside of that genre? I believe that question, we'll get into who asked that question once we get to it. But so those are the topics that we have for this week. Looks like I still got to fix that intro. I don't know what is going on with that. But anyways, sorry about that, guys. It'll be fixed next week. But anyways, Eric, have you been playing anything that you want to talk about?
I can talk a little bit about it. I pretty much waiting for Grandia, and I kind of got sick of Fire Emblem right now. I will get back into Fire Emblem. I'm not permanently sick of it. I'm just kind of sick of it right now.
So you're completely disgusted with the game. It's the worst game ever made.
No, I mean, it's a good game. I still stand by that, and I understand why other people love it. And I still love like the core gameplay of it, like the battles and everything like that. It's true to Fire Emblem. It's just, just all the stuff you have to do to get up to those points it's a little tiring on me. Mm-hmm. So I'll get back into it pretty soon. But for now, I've just been playing Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. On one of my emulated handhelds. Been using the PSP this time, but it's a good Zelda game. It's definitely not one of my high-ranking favorite 2D Zeldas, but I think it's a very serviceable one. It feels very good. The concepts, the bosses, the dungeons, I think are really well designed. And granted, now I say that in the realm of Zeldas, which I think they're all really good to an extent. Mm-hmm. Even the worst ones like Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, I still have something I can find enjoyment out of with them. So it's just in the realm of greatness. I say that, but yeah, I mean, it's an overall great game. There is a few things it stumbles on, like there's no good like midway point. Like, you know how you get like a Master Sword in Zelda, and then you feel like more things open up in the game. There really isn't a point like that. It's like your goal is pretty straightforward, and nothing nothing too much gets in your way of that.
Right.
So, I mean, there is that little narrative bump, and it kind of makes it feel like a side game mostly. And there's not as many dungeons in the game. There's some mini dungeons in the game, and there's some stronger focus on overworld puzzles and stuff you have to do. But the dungeons are pretty minimal. But I'm sorry. But for what you do get with the dungeons, they are really nice. The soundtrack is really good. And like I said, the gameplay feel is pretty amazing. Game Boy. I think Capcom did a really good job. I wouldn't say as a good job as Oracle Ages and Seasons, but as another standalone Zelda title, if they made another one in the future, I'd feel pretty comfortable with them making another one.
I haven't played that game actually, so I might be interested in trying that out. But you said you've been emulating it on your PSP. Is that correct?
That is correct. I don't know if it shows up on the screen or anything, but yeah. So Nah, it doesn't show up on the screen.
But it runs pretty well in there.
It runs perfectly. GBA games run perfectly on it.
So you gave up on the BitBoy though, huh?
There's some inconveniences that I've been spoiled with over the year. I love sleep mode, and I love the fact that I can just like flip a switch and it's in sleep mode, then flip a switch and go back to it. The Pocket Go, not only does it have screen tearing issues that start taking its toll after a while. I mean, you get what you paid for. I paid what, like $30 for it.
Well,
You
yeah,
get what
but
you paid for.
I think I got around the same price too, and I think we got like an early deal on it. I think it's now a little bit more money than that, but it's still I think it's like 50 or 60. So, but I
Yeah,
mean, it's realistically like you're gonna pay, I don't know, relatively around the same amount for a PSP. So I mean, I don't know. I guess you got to pick what you want. I still like my Pocket Go. Like it's really small. It's kind of convenient. It's nice to be able to charge it with my computer and just go. I guess you can do the same thing with the PSP basically, but um, I don't know. It it's fine. It does have that kind of like indie feel to it, to where I almost sometimes feel like it's about to break or something like that. Like I don't know. There's something about it that just when I play games, I'm a little nervous that it might like come crashing down. Whereas you might just have something a little more smooth and efficient on the PSP. So I get it. But
yeah,
um,
absolutely. I mean, the Pocket Go, I still think is a good device. I just don't, and I understand why. It's not a criticism of it, but just for personal taste, I don't like I have to exit out of the emulator completely, and then after I save state, and then I have to do a like a shutdown of the device, then turn it off.
well,
Like a
it's
lot of steps, and I'm lazy.
yeah, and there yeah. Well, there's awkward things about it too. Like, for example, I think it's with the Super Nintendo. I can't remember. See, a lot of the emulators, the confirm button is one button, but when you are navigating the menu system in the Pocket Go, that is actually the back button, and the
Uh,
confirm button is another button that happens to be the back button in most of the emulators. And maybe there's a way to change that, but that's the default setting. So I'm constantly just like wanting to confirm on a game and play the game, but I end up going back out of the menu and I got to find the game again. And like, it's not that big of a deal, but there are little annoyances like that too, that, um, one of those things you just get used to. But anyways, very, very cool. Have you,
Minish Cap, great game, highly recommended still, even if it has some small faults.
did you check out Cadence of Hyrule?
I did.
Did you like that one?
Yes.
Because it looked a little weird. Like it looked like very rhythm based, and I didn't really quite get why it was
It's a
like.
it's a it's a neat little fun game. It's not like I'm emotionally engaged with it, but it's one of those stupid fun games. Like you just go by the rhythm and defeat the enemies. It's a really cool concept. Sometimes it doesn't calibrate correctly to the beat, and you have to go back and recalibrate it. But that was very far in between. It's not like Skyward Sword bad, where you have to constantly put your remote on the ground. But
Right.
it's a good game if you're a Zelda fan and you want to try something just out of this world wacky, then yeah, Cadence of Hyrule is a good game.
I was just curious because I saw that the other day and I was like, huh, wonder if Eric played that. Yeah, very
Of
cool.
course, I've played it.
Yeah. Well, this week I've still been playing some Fire Emblem. I'm still having a really good time with that game. Liking it even more so, which is surprising because I liked it a lot last week. But I did need a little bit of a break. I need a little bit of break from being a professor. My teaching duties were getting a little strenuous. I needed to take some time off from Fire Emblem and play something else.
No,
So
it's not me then.
yeah. So I went to GameStop around the corner from where I live just to check out some of their used games and see if they had anything I might want to pick up. And while I was there, quick little tangent before I talk about what I was playing. I was talking with the clerk because there's been all this discussion about this this new Switch model that's come out that has, an increased battery life, a slightly better looking picture, and really that's only the major difference. People are still debating whether there is at all any kind of performance. increase. Most people are saying no. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody that says, "Well, in this one game, they saw something." But regardless, the battery life is a lot greater. I think it's almost double. And I've been playing Fire Emblem Three Houses basically in portable mode most of the time. And so I thought, okay, how much could I get for my regular Switch at GameStop if I were to trade it in and then, kind of take off the price of getting this newer model Switch? And I was just curious, but I thought maybe 120, 140, maybe 150. They said they would give me $200 if I traded it in for a newer Switch, which that was actually surprising to me. Obviously, if I went on Craigslist or something and I wanted to sell the Switch myself and go through that entire hassle, that would be, more of a hassle. But that did surprise me. It got me thinking about it. But I don't know, man. It's just not having only a greater battery life. I just still can't, because after tax, I would still have to spend $120, and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So I think what I want to do is wait for a Switch Pro to come out, which there's still rumors about that, and that has an even greater battery life, more stable frame rate and everything like that. I think at that point, that's what I want to wait for. And also, I've heard too with these newer Switches, they're harder to jailbreak for some reason. Nintendo's gotten a little smarter. And not that I want to jailbreak my Nintendo Switch, but I do see some people have been loading like emulators on there and emulating games, which, I don't know if this is going to be a thing later on. Like if you want to emulate on your Switch, you need to get a base model Switch. I don't know. So I'm not really wanting to give up my current Switch for a newer Switch yet. Have you thought about getting a newer one or?
No, the only true difference of that Switch is they upgraded the chip inside of it,
Right.
but
It's
the
just more power efficient. That's the upgrade.
yeah, it's more power efficient because even the same exact battery is in that Switch, but because the processor is more powerful
Mhm.
and has better ways of um, improving battery life by not using as much. The battery itself naturally is a lot more. Um, it's going to last longer naturally. I it's just not worth spending that much extra money just to get like an extra hour of battery life. I've still never been in a situation
Yeah.
where I've needed to like where my battery power is about to die out. I don't venture much outside.
Well,
With my Switch.
I think people are getting more than an hour though. But like, I mean, and I see your point still stands though. But I see people getting, 6 hours in Breath of the Wild at max settings, and 5 hours in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is good. But they have these things on Amazon. They're like a clip-on battery pack. It's somewhat slim, but it's not as convenient. But you just put it on your Switch, and suddenly your Switch will last like 10 hours, and it's like $65. So I look at that and I'm like, well, what's that?
I'm just saying I'd rather get that.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't have to trade in my Switch, and I get that. And it lasts longer than a new Switch. So, but I've seen people make the counter argument that, well, if you got a new Switch and that battery pack, then your Switch would last like 17 hours. And well, that's cool too. But I'm in your shoes. I've never been in a position where my battery ran out, except recently. I played Fire Emblem Three Houses for like, I don't know how many hours. I can't remember exactly, but it was many hours in a row. And I got that little indicator that the battery was going to die. But I I was sitting on my bed. I just grabbed the plug and plugged it into the wall, and then plugged it into the bottom of the Switch, and boom, no no worries. So yeah, it was a little consideration of mine to get that, but I think I'm gonna hold off until there's actually a more upgradable Switch. But
Actually, now that I think about it, I probably will inevitably get one
why is
because
that?
Pokemon Sword and Shield. My fiance wants to play that, and we only have one Switch, and we want to play together. So I may get that new Switch, and then give her the one I currently have right now.
See, that would be a thing to do because that would make sense. Just get the newer Switch, and obviously At this point, I'm not getting a Switch Mini. With this newer Switch model out, with the better battery life, there's no reason for me to get it. So that would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. She's interested in playing it on the TV also, so the Switch Mini idea is not really there anymore. And I don't blame her. I mean, I'd love to have the just want to be on the TV sometimes and not on handheld and the battery running out all the time. I kind of want to get an extra dock right now, just so
I thought about that. Switch rooms. Yeah.
yeah, just go in different rooms.
Yeah.
But um, I mean, if you're someone who goes out often, like, and you're really dependent on that battery life, and you don't want to carry something like an extra battery pack around, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean,
Apparently the
like 2 3
screen
hours more out of a game.
and apparently the screen is a little bit better designed. It's a bit better for in sunlight. It's still not great. It's still not going to be an ideal way to play your Switch, but that is a good point. If you're just traveling outside, maybe walking around a neighborhood or something like that, like, in your teens, I guess you can get this newer Switch and it might work a little bit better outside. So, but yeah, I just want to wait for a better upgrade. But I ended up picking up World of Final Fantasy on PS4. I did not get the Switch version. I wish I did get the Switch version because
It runs much better on PS4 than the Switch. I mean, it runs fine enough. I mean, you don't need to have it running full 60 frames per second to play that game engaging way.
that was
So
one that was. I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the things I was wondering. Because the first thing that stood out to me is um like the game switches between these like really cheapy looking characters and then a much more polished character models, right? And I've only seen the game really in those really chibi styled characters, but when I see it in the regular like styled characters in the very detailed environments, and like I was very surprised with like the quality of the cutscenes and like it just some of the areas of this game were actually like more expensive looking than I imagined. So I was curious how that ran on the Switch, but apparently better on the PS4, but not terrible on the Switch.
yeah, I mean, it runs much better on the PS4 definitely. And when you run it in handheld mode, like it does not look good in handheld mode. Uh, now, granted, it's still a perfectly fine playable version of the game.
Right.
So, if you want the portability aspect of it, I mean, it works perfectly fine. But the PS4 and PC versions are the definite versions for sure.
Yeah. Well, I've been so into playing Fire Emblem Three Houses in portable mode lately, and I'm just like chilling on the couch, laying down and stuff. And I just would have preferred to play World of Final Fantasy like that. Um, because I have my PS4 Pro hooked up in a different room and I have to like sit in this like reclining chair and it's comfortable, but I'm like, man, I wish I had this on my Switch. But anyways, I've still been having a good time with it. Aside from the first hour of the game, it was really, really slow and there was endless tutorials just nonstop. Like everywhere I go, it's just like 4 pages of stuff to read. And I'm like, dude, I cannot remember all this. I don't care enough to remember all this. So I started just playing the game and I'm like, whatever. Like if I can't figure something out, then I'll go into the menu and read or I'll just Google it. But I started fast forwarding through all that crap because I'm like, I don't have any time for this. But yeah, it's a good game, man. It got a lot better once we got to Cornelia, and I started to recognize a lot of like the Final Fantasy stuff that this is celebrating, and it was like really really exciting when you would see characters and you already know who they are, or or just it's coming from like a theme of the game, or like the little cacti characters, or like the Chocolina and stuff like that, and but it's a I've been having a good time with it. I don't know if it's something that I'm really gonna want to like 100% complete, you know,
It's kind of
but
like a theme park type of game where it's well a more linear one. It's just like you get like nostalgia bomb after nostalgia bomb after nostalgia bomb, but it's like it's not like the character. It's like their own characters. Like they're not like directly based off their games. So you'll have like trying to remember correctly. Um, yeah, you'll just have situations where Cloud and I think Cloud and Ferris working together as a team for like some from some group they're in. So it's a bunch of crazy, wacky stuff that you'll enjoy as a Final Fantasy fan. There's a little bit to enjoy if you're not a FF fan, but I don't know why you would get this if you're not.
Yeah. Well, it kind of feels like the answer to all those fans out there that were angry about the slow retraction of Final Fantasy from Kingdom Hearts. That, like, I don't know, they're like, okay, fine. Here's this basically like Kingdom Hearts like premise where you're going to travel to these different worlds, but they're going to be all Final Fantasy. You know, it's just here, there you go. Now you have it. So I can
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it's a very childish game too. On top of that, that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just mean the story is built intentionally for a younger audience. So don't expect but so many mature themes in it.
But
You
I'm
get
yeah.
much more mature from there.
Yeah, but I've been enjoying it. It's been a good time. It's been a little change of pace between Fire Emblem Three Houses and then go into this game, which I don't really have to think about it much at all, aside from the endless tutorials.
And on top of that, I love the UI of the battle system.
I'm still getting used to it where it has because I tend to turn to classic mode where because you're talking about in battle where they'll let you press triangle or X or whatever and it's like labeled what it's gonna do. I can see how I could get into it, but I'm still like at that point where I'm like, World of Final Fantasy, celebrating Final Fantasy. I want a traditional battle system. So
I think to myself, the faster I can get to a menu input, the better the game is for me.
oh,
That
absolutely.
that was such a redeeming quality for Persona 5 for me, which I've never finished either, but the UI and the battle system UI was just like absolutely top notch. And just because it was so quick to get to where you want to go, stuff like that, and it just made the battles just feel so free flowing for a
Yeah.
turn-based game.
Yeah. I still
And
need
World
to
of Fantasy, I think, does that pretty well also.
I still need to pick that game up, Persona 5. I've
At this
I
point, for the Royal Edition.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I keep seeing the game for like 15 or $20 and I'm like, dude, that's such a good price for that game. But now the Royal Edition's coming out and I'm just like, I might as well just wait for that version. Because if I don't like Persona 5 or I only kind of like it, people are going to say, well, if you had gotten the Royal Edition. So I'm just going to wait and get that version. That's what
Yeah,
I'm going to do.
you're right.
What's that?
You're absolutely right. That's something I think some people would say.
Yeah. But anyways, speaking on releases, I was really surprised to see this, but we have Grandia HD Collection. So that's Grandia 1 and 2 in HD. And that was announced for the Switch and then the other systems as well, I believe, but primarily the Switch for August 16th. And that's this Friday. That's really quick. And there's not even a trailer out right now that I've seen. It's, I'm just really surprised that.
Footage though, so
What's that?
there's a lot of gameplay footage though, so you can see that at least.
Yeah, you go on YouTube, there's all sorts of people that got like preview copies, so you can check those out. But I'm
One thing to note is that while PC players aren't getting it right away, they still have they are still upgrading the Grandia 2 that's in there right now to what the HD remaster version is on the
so
Switch.
you're talking about the fact that you can buy a version of Grandia 2 HD on Steam right now that's been out for a few years.
Yeah, and it's been upgraded to the version that's on the Switch, the fixes and upgrades they've stuff, and I mean stuff they've done. And eventually, Grandia 1 is going to be available on Steam. So if you're a PC player, you want to play Grandia 2 right now, and you can wait later for 1. When it eventually does come to PC, you can get 2 right now.
Here's the thing though to note. I read online that the Switch version, it's going to be, it's coming out on Friday, but it's not going to support the ability to go widescreen, whereas the PC version will. Now, I'm curious what they mean by that. Are they stretching the image, or did they actually go through and enhance the image in a high quality way so to where it doesn't just look stretched? Because if they did that, I might be more interested in the PC version. I'm just curious. I know, like the PS3, for example, they'll put all your old PS1 games in full screen, but all it does is just blow the image out, and it just looks like crap. It does. It's not. It's like the cheapest way to do it. So I'm curious how they're doing that and what that means. But that is one thing that I'm interested to hear more about. So.
Huh. I mean, I'm kind of looking at it right now, like some gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
and it does look like it could be 4-3.
Well, on the Switch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a deal breaker, but that's one of those things where I'm like, I wouldn't even think about until I heard that the PC version is going to have this other option, and I'm just not. I don't know. I mean, it's regardless. The game looks great. I would pull some footage up here and show you all, but I don't want our video to get taken down, so I'm just going to hold off on that for now. But it does look really, really good. I strongly suggest y'all going out there and checking out some of these previews. You can see a lot of befores and after from the game. I haven't played Grandia 2. I played Grandia 1, and it's been a long time, but one of the things that I really, really liked about the first one was just the pixel art characters, the 2D pixel art characters on like this like cell shaded 3D backgrounds. It's aged really, really well. It looks awesome. And I saw somewhere, I didn't realize back when I was a kid, but a lot of the cutscenes are hand drawn too, which I think is really, really cool. So I know for sure Grandia 1's really good. I don't know about 2, but
Uh,
Grandia.
2 is a really good game. It's a very basic game, like RPG mechanic wise.
Mhm.
Like if you played a JRPG before, you'll be right at home. But I think the story is really good. It's I mean, it's an era of its time, so like there might be some story tropes that you're familiar with and seen before. But I mean, again, this is a game at the time where like when the Dreamcast came out. So you still got some of the RPGs still growing
Yeah.
like that. But I mean, I still highly recommend it to anyone. It's still a very solid RPG.
Um, so I mean, that's definitely a reason to check it out. But we're gonna see. I'll probably end up getting it on Friday. It's a digital only edition. I do wish there was a physical edition because I already have these games to emulate if I want to. So it's kind of a feeling like, man, I wish I could have this physically on my shelf for the Switch. But honestly, it is really convenient just to be able to pick the Switch up, switch from Fire Emblem Three Houses, and go right into Grandia without having to get up and switch the card or anything like that. So I don't know. I'm curious about the price. I think we've kind of established that we probably think it's maybe $40. But
Maybe depending on how much value they find in Grandia 1. Like Grandia 2 on Steam right now is 20. So I can at least assume the minimum's gonna be 30 and at most 40. I don't think they would dare try to charge beyond that.
so Grandia 1 was a PS1 and Sega Saturn game. So
And this is based off the Sega Saturn version.
which is good because if you see some comparisons, the Sega Saturn version I think was the superior one. But regardless of that whole debate, I mean, if you look at other PS1 games that have been released on the Nintendo Switch in an HD fashion, the price is going to fluctuate. But when you look at like a juggernaut, like Final Fantasy 7 or 9, those games are around the $20 to $25 range. But those games have a huge audience, whereas this game was it still did well, but not as well as those games. So I don't know, man. Like I don't know if they're going to go for the 40. I could see them doing maybe 30, maybe. I don't know. I could see them doing anywhere between 30 and 45. We'll have to see.
I mean, yeah, like I said, it completely depends on what value they find in the first Grandia.
Yeah.
Now, I have a feeling they're going to price it the same as the second one to combine it to be 40. But
Right.
there is always a chance it could be 30 also. But I think the safe bet is probably 40.
Is there a price if it comes out, if they come out hot and it's like $60, are you not getting it?
I don't know, maybe.
Because part of me is going to look like, well, if I can get Grandia 2 HD on PC for 20, You know, I could almost just go buy the original PS1 game,
I
for
don't think.
$40.
I think out of principle, I don't think I could pay 60, and I think that would be a huge mistake because
Especially for a digital game, like it's no.
yeah. First off, being digital, Collection of Mana is $40.
That's got 3 games. Granted, one of them's a Game Boy game, but
Yeah, but there's still like 3 full titles, and I just can't see this going past 40. I mean, the games are. I can't think of a collection similar to Grandia that they try to hike up the price as high as they could. I don't think the amount. If they do, at $60, that better be widescreen. That's what I'd say.
yeah, I don't want any features missing. But it looks really good from what I've seen. So, I do the first game though. It has a really cool battle system. I remember it like lets you kind of run around the field a little bit, kind of like a Tails game, but it lets you like manipulate the turns of other enemies, and you can delay their turn or you can skip their turn altogether based upon what you do in combat. It's also got this like almost like gambit like setup. It's very simplistic, but I'm trying to like remember more, but I just remember thinking like, wow, this is really unique. And obviously we saw a lot of that type of stuff later with later titles, but it's really cool to see some of that stuff on a PS1 game. So very, very cool. I'm excited. I just want a physical edition and I'm curious about the price.
Yeah, the game. Uh, the concepts are very simple and basic, but they still find a way to be engaging and fun at the same time.
Yeah.
Uh, so Grandia meets that nice in the middle place. The first 2 games is like, well, it's nothing complex, but it's still very fun.
Yeah.
Like go back to the good old days RPG type of fun.
Yeah, and that's kind of like why I'm thinking maybe a digital version might be better for me because that way I can just play it in short spurts. Because I have to admit, as much as I like physical editions of these games, the fact that I have to go like through the game case and find the cartridge and then like or the card and pull it out and put it in and take my old game out, that does the games that I have to do that for, I play them less than the games that are digitally installed on my Switch. It's just a fact. So this might be a better way for me to play the game, being able to just play it for an hour and then switch back to whatever else I'm currently playing. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, but yeah, we'll I guess we'll check it out and give you all our thoughts. Moving on though to
I'll say in Discord if it's widescreen or not.
on the Switch.
Yeah, I'll be the guinea pig. People, don't worry.
I was a guinea pig for Final Fantasy IX on the Switch, and ooh, it was a little rough at first, but it looks like they're starting to fix it. So Eric will take the bullet this time.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Sword and Shield. That game is looking to be very good, and there's been some information that's come out about it. Basically some designs for different Pokemon that were released, as well as some designs for some different characters, including some of the enemies. Let me send this link over to you so you can be looking at the same thing. But this was actually shared by Decoy Manta, which is formerly known as Second Entity. He's got a Twitch channel and he's been streaming on there. So I guess that's his name, Decoy Manta on Twitch. So
God, they put a top hat on my Wheezing.
so hold on, let me get this on the screen because some of it's a little silly. Some of it's a little silly. I don't know how I feel about it, but some of it looks pretty good. But some of it's silly. So let me see. All right. Okay, I just went to the most ridiculous part. Let me go to the top. Okay, so this is from the title of this article is Pokemon Sword and Shield details Galarian form Pokemon, form changing Pokemon, new rivals, and Pokejobs. I just had a flashback when I was a little kid. I used to get so mad because my mom would say Pokemon, and I would just like lose my mind, like, Mom, that's not how you say it. But anyways, moving on. So yeah, they put on Wheezing. They put this like top hat type thing, but he's like got fumes coming out of the top, like it's like a chimney stack. How do you feel about this?
I love it. What's there to not love? He's got a little top hat that's a chimney, and his gas is a mustache and beard and eyebrows on it.
Yeah, I'm like, is this always in that position? I don't know. I mean, it's a creative design, but I think you're one of the you brought up in a prior podcast that there was one generation of Pokemon that got really weird where they were using like everyday items and like making a Pokemon out of it. And so this kind of like I look at this too, and I'm just like, this looks weird.
I mean, I'm not a hardcore Pokemon fan either, so I'm not going to be like, they ruined the integrity. That was wheezing. Now he looks
Yeah, I'm
like
like,
it makes sense. It's like, and then there's me who's casual Pokemon player. It's like, oh, top hat wheezing. I want it.
yeah. I mean, like, look, is Weezing really like anybody's favorite Pokemon? So what's that?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to catch him. I'm going to put him on my team too.
Yeah, make it like your primary play Pokemon. Yeah.
I
Um,
don't even know what Pokemon they're returning. Uh, I'm only aware of the first generation Pokemon. Like I've been playing Pokemon Go, um, my fiance, and we've been walking around and like I'm catching like all these different things. I can only recognize the first 151 Pokemon. Like the other one, there's like some cool designed ones that I thought that was really neat, and I want to get evolved forms of them, but like I don't recognize any of them because I didn't really play any of the Pokemons up till now. Like I've purchased some, I've tried to get into them, but like I just wasn't feeling it. And they're good games. The Pokemon series is great. I mean, they're known
yeah.
for their quality and stuff, but Sword and Shield, I feel very confident this time that I'm going to put a lot of time into.
Yeah,
As
just
anything, she will be a motivation for me to keep playing it.
yeah, I think so far it looks a lot like they've really stepped it up a notch. I know a lot of people felt like, this looks like a barely an upgrade from the 3DS games, but we've already talked about that a little bit. But I mean, there's some clear differences where they've really stepped it up, and I think that just in the scope, it looks really awesome. But yeah, I'm not sure which Pokemon are returning. There was that whole dilemma of the fact that they came out and said they can't continue to have like 800 Pokemon return in every game, and then every succeeding game has more and more Pokemon they have to do. So there's going to be certain Pokemon that just aren't going to make the cut. But I'm sure it's going to be all your favorite ones, and I'm sure first generation Pokemon. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a focus. Like I would be surprised if any of the big ones from there are missing. But
Yeah,
um,
I mean, I'm not diving into that controversy because people are very sensitive to that apparently. So,
yeah,
with the whole Pokemon Bank thing, I mean, I understand from the developer side completely. I mean, just having to reanimate and do HD textures for every single Pokemon you have made before. I mean, that has got to be that's got to easily delay a game by a year at the least.
I'd be curious to get a sneak peek in the studio because they have to come out with new Pokemon for every game, and you got to think like some of the Pokemon we see is pretty wacky, like this Weezing character with this top hat that like this upgraded or evolved Weezing or whatever with the top hat, and he's got like smokestack coming out the top that and like a mustache that's like garbage or whatever. That's pretty crazy, but you got to think there's certain models that did not make it. Like they looked at it and they thought this is a little too far out for us, right? But like they're coming out with like 900 Pokemon. Like it's I just wonder like what are some of the designs that did not make it? It's probably got to be something pretty absurd.
Yeah, and then this thing shows the Team Rocket ish
Well,
group.
that's one of the things I was going to get to here. We can go down to there right now, but hold on. Let's see. Pull this up on the screen. So they have the team yell, and this is so far this is one of the few things I look at this game and I'm like this looks stupid. I like hey the girl or whatever I is fine I guess, apparently they're supposed to be kind of like a sports team type atmosphere where they're rooting for their particular whatever. I don't know. I think their
like
particular
like
Poke trainer or whatever.
Gary Oaks person, and then he has like a fandom of uh like punk teenagers, I guess.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I don't get it because you have these, like, for example, in this third screenshot down, where that looks like they're talking with the Marnie, this other character, the girl character. Um, they have two identical looking fat dudes with like a shirt that's way too small with their belly button hanging out, and it's like the identical like character model. And I'm like, why are you not wearing a shirt that's like appropriate for your body length or body type? And then like, why are you blowing a horn? Why do you have a pink mohawk? What? Why? Why do you have spikes around your ankles? I'm just like this. Look like I don't like this part. Now it could be hilarious. I think it's obviously going for humor, but I don't think we're supposed to take it seriously.
I don't think you ever meant to take Pokemon seriously. People just take it seriously.
Yeah, but I'm just like this. This is supposed to be intimidating. No, not not at all. But I don't know. I can probably get on with it. But one of the cool Pokemon I thought was interesting that I saw in here was if you scroll up. I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's Obstagoon, I think it is. But it's got this like, um, what's up?
Looks like a skunk.
Yeah, it's like this skunk-like character, but he's like crossing his arms and he's got a tongue hanging down. But apparently, I don't. I read this on Twitter. Somebody tell me if this isn't true, but apparently he was modeled after Kiss or Gene Simmons, and his like Kiss attire with him with his tongue out, and he's got the black and white on his face. Which once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see that, and that's kind of cool. What's that? You broke
Yeah.
up. Yeah. So, but they're still coming out with some creative designs there. So it's I don't know, man. Like there's something about this game that just looks really fascinating to me, more so than other games.
I think it looks aesthetically pleasing. I mean, I know it's not like Unreal Engine open world graphics with realistic looking Pokemon and stuff like that. But but it's still got that cute handheld look that it's always been known for. I mean, it just comes down to like people see these like they get a hold of Unreal Engine and then like make some model Pokemon on there and run them around and has like really bad animation, like people made by fans, and be like, and they're like, "Look, Nintendo, this is what you're capable of doing." It's like, but it's not very pleasing looking. It's like it's too uncanny. Like I like it when it's like very cartoonish. That's what Pokemon is supposed to be. Like, you don't need it being realistic looking. And I know what people mean with it. They want to like use like clever things like high end cell shading and stuff like that. But I do like the fact that they do keep it handheld looking to an extent because I mean that's a rock and a hard place for Nintendo that like you have a system now that is both a handheld and a console machine. So you have uh, this place where like people want to make more simple double A games like for and for like more catered to handheld. And then you got like the Breath of the Wilds, which are like clearly console like oriented that that can be played in handheld. So it is like I said, it's a rock a hard place for Pokemon.
That is a good point though that I never even thought of. The fact that the Switch is both a console you can play on your television, but also a portable console that you can play in handheld mode. It I think people would be very upset if the game was so realistic looking that it performed poorly in handheld mode. Given that almost all games, people's favorite games have been on handheld devices and they're used to playing that way, it would be just very jarring, I think, for a lot of people not to be able to feel like they're getting an optimal experience in handheld mode.
And at the end of the day, Pokemon is made for children. Adults can enjoy it also. It can be enjoyed by adults for sure. I mean, I'm clearly an adult,
This could be like a Trix commercial.
but the game is built in the mind of children first. So I think you kind of have to take that into account also when you make these type of aesthetics or decide how big you want the place to be. And
Yeah.
it's not talking down to children, but there's a point where uh, no matter how smart you are as a child, that things can start feeling overwhelming when you got like these big places you don't know where to go. I mean, when you keep it like very well contained, like it is, I mean, it's more appealing to the child mindset
Yeah.
that way. And it's not saying children are dumb. It's just saying that
They're children.
children have a different mindset of like what appeals to them and not appeal to them.
Sure.
No.
Well, yeah. So they definitely like a different type of aesthetic, and they can't be like overtly Dark Souls with like an 8-year-old can't get past the first 10 minutes or anything like that. It has to be approachable to everyone, so it makes sense. But regardless, I'm gonna check it out. November 15th, 2019 is gonna be a good day for me.
Definitely.
So, very, very excited about that. Now, something else that I know that Eric is excited to talk about: Final Fantasy 14. You want to give us the rundown on the latest drama with Final Fantasy 14? Because there's been a good deal of it.
It's not really drama. It's more like it's a sort of misunderstanding. So how the game works. Um, Basically, you like right now we've gotten Shadowbringers. We get the whole expansion. We get the story, like Final Fantasy Link's story in it. But then after that happens, like it's ended. Like we got to the end, but now what's going on is every 3-4 months we get patches, about 5 patches, major patches every 3-4 months, which accumulates over 2 years. And every one of those we get additional story that leads into the next expansion. So it's kind of like an epilogue type of deal for Shadowbringers in a way. You can kind of think of it's a hard thing to say. Say like TV. No, I won't say it like that either. It's a little complicated to explain unless you play it yourself. But the game starts out with a realm reborn, and you go through that story and you get to the end, you beat it, and just like every expansion after it, there has been a series of stories to the main story that leads into Heaven's Ward, the expansion after it. Now, what people have always complained about the game, and rightfully so, it is right that I think it's a fair criticism, is that there's a lot of fluff in that which starts making people impatient. And there's a lot of stuff like trial fights, dungeons
Well,
that you have
yeah,
queues for.
people hear about how awesome all these expansions are, but then you buy the game and it's almost so overwhelming with all the fluff, as you put it, because they have to get through all that to get to this other content.
Well, there's important story beats to patch 2.1 to 2.5, which is the post A Realm Reborn main scenario content that leads to Heaven's Ward. So the main story beats are still going to be there. They're not going to cut those out. I mean, you're still going to have to fight the primals that are in that and do the dungeons that are in it. But in between all that content, there was a lot of fluff stuff like go pick these up fetch quests type of deals. That takes up a lot of time also. And
Well, the thing is too, like, I'm sorry. Well, I was just gonna say, the thing is too, the fetch quests are like, hey, go to the other side of the continent to like talk to this person. Okay, now go back to the other side of the continent, and you can sit there and warp to a nearest area and then travel to there. But those things do take more time for sure.
Yeah, so what they want to do is they want to take a lot of that fluff out and just get more to the meat of the matter in the post of Realm Reborn story, because there still is good content story content in there. It's just there's a lot of far in between stuff you have to do, and it wasn't as bad back then because they released the patches like every 3 to 4 months. So what their mindset was, pack a lot of content as much as hold them off as much as they can. And what they learned was that they needed to branch those out into different segments. So for Heaven's Ward, the story that goes between from Heaven's Ward to Stormblood, what they did cleverly is that for like trial fights and dungeons, they kept those to the side and made a lot more focus on the main story and made sure there wasn't too much fluff in it. So it's a lot better paced. And Post Realm Reborn is really not like that. You have to the primals are part of the something you have to wait for. It's content people don't do anymore, so you may have to wait in a longer queue. Their goal is to shorten that as much as they can. They're not getting rid of it. They're not taking the main Realm Reborn story and shortening it or compacting it. They're mostly focusing on post Realm Reborn because that's where most people have been complaining. They might take some fluff off the main Realm Reborn story, but it's going to mostly be in that particular department. So it's not as a big thing as people think. It's just they're finally addressing this after years and years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me say this, and then I got to check on one thing real quick, and I'll be right back. But let me say this: I'm currently going through a Realm Reborn right now. I'm pretty deep into it. I would say I'm over the hump, but there are ups and downs to that part of the game, and I think that a lot of the fluff, you could say, would be the fact that they had to basically rebuild this game from the ground up in a very quick amount of time, and I think they did a great job. But whenever you do that, you have to create something that will keep people entertained enough until you can get something else out. And I think for that initial game, you're always going to want to do that. You're always going to have that problem where they're going to have different things that they're experimenting with that kind of work, but over time don't work. And, the base game's always going to be your oldest content. So it's always going to be the one that seems out of date at first. So as long as they're keeping the main story in there, I don't see any problem because it just allows more people to get to the later stuff.
What I'm surprised also
right back.
Information was given by the Q&A live letter with Naoki Yoshida, the director and producer of the game. And it was just like a small comment to the side that like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to address and shorten aspects of A Realm Reborn and patch 5.3, and we're in patch 5.0 right now. So that's still gonna be a while away. That's gonna be like sometime next year. So if you want to play the game, like, do not wait for that. That's not going to necessarily make things better for you. Just if there's anything in Realm Reborn that feels like it's starting to become a slog, I guarantee you just plow right through it and get to the Heaven's Ward content, and the pacing of the game is a lot better there. It's not saying a Realm Reborn is bad. It's actually good. And the story, I actually find the story really good and engaging and a lot of fun with it. There's a ton of fun moments. It's just how they paced the normal questing with the main questing is where it just comes off a little bit. And it was their first time with it also, but they learned from and got feedback from people. And from Heaven's Ward onward, it has just been they've mainstreamed it so much that like it's a Final Fantasy first and like an MMO second until you get to end game. End game, it's 100% an MMO, but just all the story content engaging on the way to it just feels like total Final Fantasy.
So what do you feel is the crux of the argument for people that are mad about this, even if they're a minority? What is the main argument that you see that people are making regarding not wanting them to do this?
I don't think there's anyone who does not want them to do this.
Really? So it's that bad?
No, it's not that bad. It's just that I think everyone universally agrees there's a lot of stuff in the post Aroma Born content that you could take out without affecting the quality of the story and getting people to Heaven's Ward faster.
Yeah. Is there any kind of timeline when this is going to happen?
Patch 5.3. We're in. I was just telling them it's patch 5.0 right now,
So there's
and
a little bit of time.
patch every 3 to 4 months. So somewhere around October and November, they're probably going to release patch 5.1. So sometime mid to late 2020 it's going to happen. So
Is it going to be a gradual thing? Like they'll do it a little bit in the first patch and then a little bit more in the second patch? Or is it going to be a dramatic, just like, okay, 5.3 tomorrow, boom? Or we don't know.
Happen 5.3 because how they work is they don't like to go back to old content unless they absolutely have to. Like unless it's like something necessary they have to do to adjust with the current game right now. Their overall philosophy is focus on the new, don't worry so much about the old. So there's so much feedback in regards to new players feeling like they have to slog through post A Realm Reborn to get start getting and catching up.
Yeah.
That the developers agree and they're like, okay, well, we're going to make an exception here and we're going to fix this. Because if you follow the game, you will know that they very, very rarely go back to old content for anything, for like readjustments or having to go back for something. It's very rare they do it. They
Makes
always
sense.
That's their philosophy.
Go for the newer stuff. Yeah, makes sense. Well, the fact that they're doing this tells me that they're planning on creating more content for 14 for a very long time. I would suspect, right? Because the fact that they're going back and trying to streamline the first game or the first part of this means they want more and more people to come so they can buy future expansions or future things, right? So, yeah, that's exciting in of its own right.
And I still don't think it's bad enough that it's a deal breaker for the game. It's just I understand. But it personally didn't affect me because I did it as each patch came out. So it wasn't like going through all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
But going through again, if I made a new character, I would definitely probably find certain parts of the post Aroma Born the slog also. But like I said, it's absolutely not a deal breaker, and the story you still get in it is still really good.
Sure.
But
Yeah, so far I've been really liking it. So I don't know. I think one of the good things though is for people like me that don't have a lot of time to commit to multiple games at one time, having the ability to get through that first part quicker and get to some of the later stuff, I think that's definitely going to be a godsend. Because dude, there's a certain amount of people that I know are just like not wanting to dip their toe in the water with this game just because they think about how much time it's going to take. So I'm all for it. I think it's a good idea.
I'll say I've said it in the previous podcast, but I'll say it one more time. When you're playing this game, don't worry about catching up with people. You really just need to enjoy the game. Enjoy each story that you go through, and eventually you will be at the end point and you'll be caught up with people.
Yeah.
The story in 14 is so damn good. Like even its lowest points, I still hold a higher standard than like a lot of other Final Fantasies in the series, like especially 13 and 15. Like the 13 and 15's highest points, like don't even match like 14's more lower points in my opinion. I mean, it's that much better. And like I'm recently learning they've gotten writers from who did works like with like Final Fantasy 12 and Tactics doing the writing. And like I mean I'm just amazed on like the talent from the people who make this game.
Yeah. It's getting great reviews. It's got a really good Metacritic score. The last Shadowbringers, anyways. So,
oh my god, Shadowbringer story was so good.
yeah. But so yeah, that's basically kind of summary of what's going on with Final Fantasy 14 and this whole Realm Reborn streamlining the game business. And if you happen to be one of the people that Eric or myself have never seen that have an issue with this, let us know in the comments. Let us know if there's a reason to be upset about this or something that you're worried about, and we'll definitely go over it. Eric will probably disagree with you, but you might get a ray of hope from me. We'll see. But anyways, so we had some questions last week on our Discord server, and I want to find out who exactly asked this question because I want to make sure I give him some credit. But basically, the question was, outside of RPGs, what is your favorite genre, and what is your favorite game outside of that genre? And Eric, do you want to start us off? I find this question on Discord.
I know I'm part of an RPG podcast, and I love RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, I love talking about them all day, but action adventure is my favorite genre. That's the one I started with, and it's the one I still uphold the highest today. I mean, you all know that my favorite series is Zelda, so you gotta kind of just put one and one together. But
so this question was asked by Decoy Manta, by the way, formerly Second Entity. So thank you for the awesome question. Keep going. I'm sorry.
And obviously, my favorite game out of it is Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. That is just, in my eyes, the perfect
Great game
without its flaws. But in my eyes, it's everything right with me.
Yeah, it's a definitely a really good game. I'm not like a huge Zelda fan, but there are certain ones that I really liked, and that's definitely one of them. So
yeah, I mean, in terms of 2D, that is absolutely the best one, without a doubt.
So you would consider, how would you classify that? Just action adventure or adventure?
Adventure.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same route where, well, I'm split because more recently I've gotten into more action adventure games, but I'm talking more games like I pretty much consider them RPGs. Like one of my favorite games, newer games that I've talked about on here a few times, so I won't go too in depth, but Horizon Zero Dawn. I love that game, and I feel like it's basically an RPG. It's got an open world design. You can do crafting. You have armor sets, skill trees. The only thing it's missing is the ability to level up and have like individual stats. But it basically has that with like the armor setup and like the crafting and everything. But I get it. It's not technically an RPG, so it's more down the action adventure side. But I mean, I really like games like the Last of Us and just more story focused games that are like just like leave you with like, man, that was an awesome story. I'm all about that. So I really like games like that, but probably like the more off the wall type of games that I really enjoy are real time strategy games. In particular, one of my favorite games of all time, Master of Orion 2, came out in the 90s. Still to this day, I consider to be a great RTS game. And there's still like all these little communities built around that game. And it's essentially just a space strategy game where you try to conquer the galaxy. And I don't know, man, like it's just so well made to where every time you play it, it never feels stale. You can play it for hours and hours and hours, and it just never gets old. And there's all sorts of new technologies you can research to overcome obstacles like the environment and like the gravity and just, dude, it's such a good game. Such distinct species to interact with, and I still play that game today. It's so much fun. But
yeah, I'm not the biggest RTS person, but I certainly loved certain ones. I loved Warcraft. I love StarCraft. I liked really liked Age of Empires too. I played that with a friend, and we had a blast playing that.
Dude, I used to play that online like all the time. I have so many good memories of just playing with random people online and coming up with ways to like still win despite the fact that they've built this map that's totally in their favor. You know, it's a really good time.
Command and Conquer was another one I really liked too.
I
RTSs is that I'm really not good at them because I played through a StarCraft campaign. And I'm like, okay, I got this down. I'm going to start I'm gonna start seeing what happens when I go against other people. Like when they completely demolished me about the time I thought I got stuff set up.
See,
They wiped the floor with me.
this is like me in first person shooters because I didn't really ever get into them. And, I would go to people's houses and they would be wanting to play like Halo and stuff. And like I would play it and like I would just get killed in like the first like 45 seconds. And I'm just like, this is boring. Or I'd try to go on like the live match and it's just not something I played that often. So I would just get demolished. And yeah, it just reminded me of that. But so yeah, there are other genres we enjoy, but RPGs tend to be really enjoyable to talk about. So
yeah, and like action adventures are. I mean, I guess it really depends. There's some that are like just really intense, and there's sometimes that just the games I want to just sit down and relax. I mean, it's just what my mood is, but I mean, but if I want to go for like the most heavily story driven, if that's what I'm in the mood for, it's always RPGs.
Yeah.
All the way for me. A lot of action adventure games I play don't really have the strongest in story. I mean, of course, you got games like Last of Us and Uncharted that have great stories also, and like very thought provoking stuff. And like, but like RPGs are like those like 40, 50 hour campaigns. You just kind of want to sit like you're binging a TV series.
the thing is, like action adventure games, like if they have a good story, I feel like it's a plus. But it really comes down to the gameplay, which is good. But I feel like with like an RPG, especially JRPGs, if it doesn't have a good story, despite how good the gameplay is, it usually people just write it off as generic or like a crap JRPG. Like it lives and dies by the story, which is something I really like.
Mm-hmm. It's basically in my list. It's like action adventure first, and probably RPG second in terms of favorite genre.
Mm.
But I mean, I still love JRPGs and stuff as much as anyone around here. So
Yeah. Anyways, so that's some of the other stuff that we enjoy and other games that we like and that'll take up our time when we're not playing RPGs. But I see some people in here in the comments are throwing out some suggestions, and I see Joel says he loves Master of Magic more than Master of Ryan. You're that odd duck. But
never heard of like both what Lane and Joel said.
I've heard of both of them, but anyways, but we can get into that more on some Discord if you want. But regardless, thank you again for putting your questions out on Discord. We do have some more to get through in the future, but please make sure you go to our Discord server and click on podcast questions to ask your questions or suggest topics. You can go to gaming news, put some new stuff in there for us to talk about, like Second Entity or Decoy Manta did. Or if you are a little shy on Discord, you don't like new things, just go to our comments and our YouTube channel and just leave a comment there. Ask us your question and just put it on there that you want it on the podcast, and we'll be sure to ask it next time we get to it. So, but without anything further, I guess we'll see you all next week, guys.
All right.
Thanks for checking us out. Easy, guys.